Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back here with the third and penultimate part of, I suppose, my quest to try and help Celtic to become world class, or at least as good as possible. I think of like world class Wednesdays because of my strange, weird, quirky patterns and all that kind of thing. I was thinking it's quite hot because, well, I don't, or humid. I've got my laptop. It says very humid. It tells me the weather and stuff like that at the bottom of the laptop. And I was thinking normally I don't get very hot, so I'm down. It must be quite warm if I'm down to a t-shirt, but I was just feeling a bit claustrophobic for some reason, or a bit under the weather or whatever. But anyway, as I say, I don't normally get hot, but recently I've been getting a bit more hot than I normally do. I don't know if that's because I've got like a fever or something like that, but it just feels a bit more relaxing in a t-shirt, I suppose. But I thought, on the subject of football, I thought it should be quite. I was going to say relaxing. Then it should be quite an advantage, I would think, if I played football in a hot country in a tournament, because where everyone else would get hot a lot quicker. I was hoping I probably wouldn't, but as I got older, I seem to feel the heat more than when I was younger, perhaps. Anyway, onto the topic of football, of course. I forgot about the African Nations Cup. I saw on TV. I was just checking what was on TV a bit, and I was just seeing if there was any like football on like FA Cups or stuff like that. Which there were a few FA Cup games, or at least one, Aston Villa versus Chelsea. But I also saw like there were a few African Nations Cup, or they call it AFCON now, whatever. But or whatever. But so I watched the game Nigeria versus South Africa, which because I love both of those nations and African countries generally, it was a bit. I found it a bit difficult to choose which nation I wanted to win, but because South Africa went through apartheid, I thought part of me would wanted them to win. But then again, Nigeria has quite a few. Not sure how many, but at least I think two or three players, possibly a few more, maybe even up to five or six or so players who play in Serie A. So like obviously it's Victor Osimhen and one or two others. Sorry, I know I'm going off topic a bit, but bringing it back to the topic of Celtic, the subject of Celtic. The reason why I mentioned that is because it reminded me of an idea I thought of in the past, which is what I wonder what African players, or from the African Nations Cup or whatever, or AFCON or whatever they call it nowadays, and also I know Celtic already do have quite a few from Japan and one or two from South Korea, but I wonder what Asian players also. I think the Asian Cup is going on as well, so I wondered. I was thinking if I was a scout, I would be sitting there with my notebook, trying to write notes on, or even a laptop or whatever, trying to write notes on who the best players are from Africa and Asia. But I wonder if any Celtic fans would like to see any of those players play for Celtic. So I think that'd be interesting. Like what sort of players would you like to see being signed? I think also like the Copa America, like what sort of players would you like to see being signed from there? I hope the Celtic scouting team will be watching like Copa America when it's on, European competitions, also European Cup and all that, the World Cup, and AFCON, the Asian Cup and things like that, or whatever the Asian Cup is called, so that they can see what players from South America, Europe, Asia and Africa and elsewhere, what quality players, well, I suppose from those places specifically, could play for the club. I suppose it depends on what the players could afford. Anyway, back to my usual list. Perhaps I should have included it in the list so the intro wasn't too long. But I just wanted to know what Celtic. Maybe I should have asked it in the questions in the Q&A. Like, what sort of players would you like to see? I might put it in the comments in the video itself. Like, what sort of players would you like to see at Celtic from like South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, or wherever. Anyway, on to the topic. These are points, ideas, thoughts, visions, or whatever you call them, number 21 to 30. So here goes. So number 21, I think it'd be cool if people found out the history of Celtic, and more people around the world found out the history of Celtic. Hopefully that would encourage many people around the world to fall in love with Celtic, especially I think people with an Irish background, people of Irish roots, or even Celtic roots generally, Celtic and Gaelic, like from Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and the 8 Celtic countries which I mentioned recently, like who I would love to support Celtic and that kind of thing. So I think especially those with Celtic roots, in particular Ireland. Um, so hopefully it'll be the representative of Celtic countries. But again, if people find out about the history of Celtic, hopefully that will encourage them to support to support and even fall in love with the team. I forgot to say also in the intro, but I think the intro was quite long anyway. But I didn't watch the Celtic game actually. I listened to it by a channel called Circassian. I don't know how to pronounce it, which is spelled Cakazzian. So please check out his channel. I think it's a really cool channel. He seems quite cool, and I think his channel is quite cool in my opinion. So yeah, I hope you'll check out his channel if you stumbled on this one as well. But yeah, I was listening to it, so I didn't really get to watch the game, but each time I seemed to miss the goals. Like I was watching the Afghan football game and the AFCON Cup or whatever, and I tuned in and it was 1-0 already to Celtic. So I was like, it's too early to celebrate, but I was trying to look at the time to see how long was left, and then I went out of the room to make a cup of tea or something, and then Hibs scored, and then I came back and I missed another goal. So I missed all 3 goals, but I thought he said Maeda scored, but I think it was a new guy, Adam. I've completely forgotten his name. Adam Ida. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it's Adam Ida or something like that. But I suppose he's not been as bad signing, perhaps. I know it's only 1 game, but hopefully that will give him the confidence and he'll score quite a few goals, and we'll say that was quite a good bargain, because I think a lot of people said he didn't seem to be very good. Like he was a 3rd choice at Norwich. So a lot of people, including myself, are worried about that. When I heard like he was a 3rd choice at Norwich, I thought maybe Celtic are going for the cheap option again. But hopefully he'll prove people wrong and score a lot of goals, and maybe even say to Norwich that they should pick him more. I think he's only on loan, so with an option to buy whatever. But anyway, moving on. Number 22. I'd love to see what the club can do to improve itself in the future, like how it can market itself. And an idea I thought of recently as well is like how Rwanda has like a deal with Arsenal, where they have like Visit Rwanda on the sleeves and all that. So they're the shirt sponsors or whatever, or sleeve sponsors at least. And I thought, what if Celtic could have many deals like that with like Visit Rwanda, and then what if a bit of a controversial idea, because I know like Man United, they probably still do, but they used to change their kits a lot, and my dad and other people said that they were ripping off their fans, because like it means that the fans go buy more kits. But I wonder if Celtic fans would be happy to buy, if the club made different kits. Would again, I'd love to read from and hear from Celtic fans to see if you'd be happy to buy different kits. I suppose with marketing, some people say like when they market things towards children, like the children will complain to their parents. So it's a bit of a controversial sort of thing, and some people might think it's ripping off the fans. But if you knew the money was going to definitely be reinvested, and maybe there's a way it couldn't get into Peter Lowell or whoever's pockets, would you be happy if different? So my vision would be that Malaysia, India, Indonesia, South Africa, Singapore, Rwanda, possibly Kenya, and all sorts of different countries all around the world, as many of them as possible, like sponsored different kits for Celtic, just like Rwanda does with Arsenal. But instead of 1 country, it could be as many countries as possible, so that they specially design special kits for the club, and hopefully fans will buy them, because obviously it puts money into the club. But maybe they could. Another idea I had was like, what if there's a bank account that specifically people knew if they invested in, had shares in, equity in, or whatever, or donated to the club, they knew that money was going to be invested in the club and not be given just to shareholders who might be greedy, as some people say, like Peter Paidwell or Peter Lywell or whatever they call him. I wonder what fans would think about that. And also, if you knew it was going to be reinvested into the club. Again, I'd love to hear from and read from Celtic fans, like what you think about that. Number 23, on that note, I'd love for the club to get as much investment as possible, as much investment and sponsorship. Again, I know I mentioned that point before, but I think it's a really important point. Any legal ways that they could get, I'd love for the club to look into basically all the legal ways they could get investment and funding and sponsorship. Again, those sorts of ideas, like having those shirt sponsors, for instance, or like maybe even specific sponsors like the sleeves, the shorts, and the t-shirt, and tracksuits and stuff like that. So people sponsoring merchandise, and obviously it's got to be a mutual incentive, so it's like they'll hopefully gain from it as well. But at the same time, it'll mean that money goes into the club. I also was going to mention the point where I thought the video has gone longer than planned, so I didn't mention it in point number 22. But I think that, well, I mean, if there's an account where people know that whatever money's in there will be reinvested into the club, so whatever the fans spend on the club, like on the merchandise and whatever, the merchandise, tickets, and whatever other money fans spend on a club, except for like travel, I suppose, or maybe even if there's a way that even like travel companies could help the club out, sponsor the club or whatever. But anything that could like be reinvested into buying better players and investing in the youth, and not just go into shareholders' coffers. But maybe there's a way, like shareholders, equity holders, and whatnot. Like if fans had shares in the club, they could ensure that they could have more of a say. I suppose that's what the Celtic Trust and Celtic Shared is trying to do. I think they're sort of connected, or the same thing. Where it's saying that the shareholders and the fans, they want the fans to have more of a say, and maybe even the club to be fan run in the future, run by the fans, obviously, and that kind of thing. But me personally, I'd love to see like wealthy investors, but I wonder if there's a way where people could guarantee whatever money the fans spent went back into the club. And another thing is, I hope that the club will be rewarded for all the good work that they do in charitable work and stuff like that. Number 24, another point I mentioned quite a lot of time. So sorry for repeating myself as I often do, but I would love for the club to work with the SNP, Celtic political parties, and local and national political parties in Glasgow and across Scotland, if not the UK, and look at what they can do to benefit the club. I have to mention that how Glasgow is quite a deprived area, so if they help like young people to get into football, get out of crime, improve their diets, improve their quality of life, again their diets and things like that, which will that kind of thing, which would save the NHS, and it would also cut back on crime and things like that, and they could learn good values from the football club, and that kind of thing, like football in the community or whatever, and that kind of thing. Hopefully, that would benefit the city and the country, in Scotland specifically. And another thing is like getting lottery funding, which again is another idea I talked about before. Number 25, I dream that the club will have investment from all around the world. Number 26, I dream, as I say, that fans will be able to donate to the club, and anti-imperialists, I dream will support Celtic, so I hope they'll be able to benefit the club financially. Anti-imperialists all around the world, like myself, I dream there's a way we could like donate to the club and know that the money's going to be, as I say, reinvested into buying better players and investing in the academies. And I suppose if the club gets wealthy investors and shareholders, then they can do some of the things I wanted them to do, like donate 10% of whatever revenue or even profit. Which one? I suppose revenue would be higher, wouldn't it? But whatever money's in the club, they could donate 10% of that to good causes, especially like for former colonies, former colonized countries. And another thing is, I dream that there'd be some way that Irish clubs, or clubs with an Irish connection, again, it's another point I mentioned before, but like Celtic and the Hibs, who we played today, funny enough, would be able to get like reparations for the harsh treatment of the Irish diaspora. Number 27, again, I hope that the club will be rewarded for all the good work they do for charity. I hope it will come back to benefit the club. It'll be like karma, which often people think of it like as a punishment, karma, but I think it can also be rewarded for good behaviour. It could be a reward for good behaviour, rather. So I think karma is pretty cool. It feels like the best justice system, in my opinion. But another thing is, I often mention like this weird idea I have, like so many of my ideas, like called 1, 2, or for one, or share for share, or like for like, in other words, which means that, for instance, for each pound people donate to Celtic, or each idea they help me to implement for Celtic, which will benefit Celtic, I dream to share information they want me to share, whether that's like, if it's religious groups. I know Celtic has a Catholic connection, but as they say, it's open for all Protestants, Catholics, Muslims, or anyone else. I hope to have that deal as fair as possible. So, like, if mosques help the club, then I suppose we could share things from the Quran or whatever. And same for churches, if they want to share things from the Bible, like scriptures or whatnot. For each pound they donate or each idea they help us to write, preferably in green ink, symbolic, as like Celtic play in green. So in green and white ink or notebooks or whatever, or both, and that kind of thing. Green and stroke or white ink. Then hopefully we can find a way to return the favour. But I hope it'll be good, obviously, for their PR. It'll be interesting to find out if like Celtic fans would buy. That's another question I suppose I could ask. Like, would Celtic fans be prepared? Perhaps I could have put that in the Q&A or whatever. Maybe I'll put that for part 4. Like, would Celtic fans be prepared to buy from companies that invest in and sponsor and donate to the club? I suppose that's the whole reason for investing in sponsorship, or certainly a large part of the reason. Like, what's in it for them and that kind of thing. Number 28. I forgot to say in the intro. Again, I did mention that I didn't watch the game, but I heard it on Circassian, again, however you pronounce it. But from listening to the game, it didn't sound like Celtic were playing that well. And I think the jury's still out on whether Brendan Rodgers is the right man for the job. So it was a bit worrying, but it was good to get the result at the end of the day. And hopefully Ross County can do us a favour and cause an upset or a shock against Rangers. Hopefully they can sneak a win or at least a draw. That would be pretty cool. I don't really anticipate such, but it would be pretty cool if that did happen, trying to be as positive as possible. And I can't remember if I mentioned about the Zoom group I wish to make. So I'd love to connect with other Celts, my fellow Celts or Celtic fans around the world, to sort of have a Zoom sort of thing where we record, where we have conversations with each other and talk about the club and our dreams for the club and that kind of thing, and record it onto YouTube together, so like split screen or whatever. But I need someone who's more tech savvy to help to do that sort of thing. So anyone who would be able to record that conversation like from Zoom and put it onto YouTube, I think that'd be pretty cool. And I'd love to interview Celtic fans or whatnot. But also, I'd say, like, as a group, it would be pretty cool. Number 29, I'd love to see what neurodivergent people and mixed race people could do for Celtic. Again, I know it's another point I've mentioned quite a lot. But again, like, for instance, the idea I had about getting multiple companies or even nations, multiple countries to be shirt sponsors. So it could be like Visit Rwanda, they could sponsor their own shirts for the club, and then like Visit Malaysia, Malaysia Truly Asia, Visit Singapore, Incredible India, and different all those sorts of countries and all possible countries around the world, America and others. And I'd love for Celtic to be military neutral, so that or politically neutral in wars and things like that, so we could still get investment from Russia. I hope there's some sort of way to do so, but I don't know if there would be a loophole. But again, any possible legal, most importantly legal money, and preferably ethical, that we could get, I think would be pretty cool. And number 30, as ever, I'd love to read from and hear from Celtic fans. And gosh, I do waffle. I do try and keep these down to 10 minutes, these videos, but I do struggle. Again, as ever, any tips or anything like that, please let me know in the comment section, and I am out. Peace and love.